You said something there about getting the best bitch you can. Talk to the difference between being a breeder and having litters, having puppies, going from dog to dog to dog. Mm-hmm. Talk about that, because you've done beautiful breedings with them.
I've had lots of misses too, but the truth of the matter is, and I say we because it's not just on me. These girls are very involved. We have done very limited breedings. We don't do a lot of breedings, but when we do, I have a mind's eye of what, say, this bitch needs. If say that she's got magnificent headpiece, but I want better legs on her, then I look, and a lot of times, which people don't believe in, I'm a big believer in frozen semen on good stud dogs. And I have gone out a couple of times and maybe come back into what I know that dog has produced, no problems, and what it can do. We are blessed that we've got several sires frozen on these, and they produce different qualities. And again, different lines produce different things. We have had to outcross. You can't keep going to your own dogs. And I brought in some stuff I don't like that doesn't look Edenrock to me. Mm-hmm. But because I have frozen semen on some of my studs, those outcrosses I can bring back in. I think we are known for beautiful headpieces. Mm-hmm. And that I value that. I value these no zygomatic arch, clean here, no fluid lip lines, clean here. I value that very, very much. And let me tell you, it's not easy to keep. It isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you can use a front and a lip line in one breeding.
Oh, well, and again, you have to go out for virility, but a lot of times these crosses bring in what you see is great, but it's what you don't see that you've got to work with. And there's nothing more valuable than honest breeders. None of us, and if I can do a little preaching here, none of us brought in faults. If you've produced it or come up with something, to me, you owe it to people to be honest about what your dogs have produced. And there's nothing worse than wanting to, and this happened when I was younger and whatnot, trying to establish a look, is that, gee, you breed and you see, gee, what is this? I got puppies fainting, like, never saw that in my life. Find out that it's in lines, they never said anything. So to me, that is a real disservice. If you're going to do this, and especially if people approach you about breeding, be honest about the good and the bad. And allow that person to say, thank you, I don't want to get into it, or I've seen it and I'm willing to take the chance. So I think that's real important as a breeder.
Absolutely.
Mom, you brought up a couple concepts, and I think it'd be worthwhile to call them out. One, line breeding, and second, circular breeding, without using the title. Having gone out recently trying to find a stud dog to breed into one of my bitches, I think we don't have a lot of truly line bred stud dogs anymore, and I think Mom highlighted that because you don't have big centralized kennels.
I told her, I said, yeah, beautiful dog, and you look at the pedigree, it's a mishmash. How in the world do you know what that dog's going to produce? You don't.
And we're trying to keep with the circular breeding concept, which is you breed out to bring in fresh blood. And right now, it just so happens we have several dogs who don't truly look like what Edenrock has looked like in the last couple of years, because we're in that transition process of we've bred out because we need to bring in fresh blood. Now we've got to come back around and breed to our proven stud dogs that we know what they produce from our line to create twofold. Number one, the line bred pedigree, but then also to keep the circular breeding principle.
Well, and how many times have you seen a kennel on top that's winning everything, and then all of a sudden they're kind of, the dogs are more mediocre. Right. I think it happens to everyone. And some people get lucky that they can click with an outside combination. Sometimes it's never recovered. But I know I've watched it. I've seen it. We've been very fortunate that we've tried to balance and keep a look, but it's not easy when you have very limited, and we move so much that it was, it was not easy. But I know what I like. I've always known what I like.
Well, Cindy, with being a handler, you had the opportunity to touch, hold, move, know these dogs personally. How did that impact Edenrock?
Well, it impacted us in a very positive way. Like I said before, I had very fortunate to handle some beautiful bitches with some very gracious clients that, I was able to lease these dogs and bring them into to Edenrock
And contribute a lot.
and like I said, I didn't do a lot of breeding, but I think the breedings that I did do were quality breedings for us. On the other flip side of that too, as being a handler and having those dogs, you also build an attachment to these dogs. Some of them it's very difficult to let go away. Some of them you can't wait to go home. but besides building that rapport with the dog, you also build a rapport with the owners. Right. But even today, I'm probably a harder critic to my mother about, and I'll be honest, because I think that you used to go out into a ring, you knew who was an Edenrock dog.
Yeah.
Right.
And I feel like we have lost that. And I know that and I have to say they, because, we just recently did a breeding, Heather and I, but God bless my mother, did the breeding and whelped the bitch for us, because we just don't have time to do this. And to make any kind of an impact or to have anything, then I have to depend on my mom a lot for that. We don't always agree, sometimes we have a little different opinion and a little different life.
We've seen
good.
that.
Well,
That's
yeah,
good.
but when you've got 3 individuals and you're
But
all
it's
working
good.
under Edenrock,
Absolutely.
you're not all going to love the same thing and want the same thing.
And none of us are infallible.
But I'm in it.
But the closest thing that I feel that we have to that Edenrock is our bitch here, Zoe.
The old girl.
I mean, to me. So I'm like a little more of a harder critic about it right now to my mom and Jennifer, who are doing all the work. Because I feel like we've lost. And we're struggling to get back to
I hesitate to
right.
say lost. It's hidden.
Well, okay,
But it's in these pedigrees, but outcrossing for us to certain lines, and she's right too, and I think I mentioned that,
Right.
that we feel that the look that we're known for isn't there.
Yeah.
These are quality dogs, but to me the way to get it back is to try to go back into something, one of our sires that we can do frozen semen on, and hopefully that works. But I've seen it.
Well, and so that's where I want to say, when
yeah.
you get to a point where you have to bring in fresh blood in a breeding program. You can't just continue to go linear and down the line, because you're going to emphasize your virtues and you're also going to emphasize your faults when you get too inbred. But outcrossing like we have, our young bitches in the backyard, every single one of them is an outcross right now. We are in a transition period. We've gone out to several different studs to bring in blood, and now you're in that period where it's circling back around, but you gotta wait a generation, 2 generations to get that circle to come back around. It takes time.
The highs and the lows.
But I want to emphasize 2 things that Cindy started talking about, because I do think there's 2 really important factors here. When you've moved around the country, or you have somebody who's got exposure through handling or through other resources to different dogs, different breeding programs, and moving around the country or specialing, it keeps you from being kennel blind. And when you get too ingrained in your line, sometimes you don't see what's going on in your backyard. Versus because she's had like the relationship with Trish handling, and the relationship early on with some of the that we were able to bring in some of the Giancata type body styles, we were able to make improvements, and Marna's, we were able to make improvements, things we needed to do in our line at those stages to get us to those outstanding dogs. Brooks, I would not have had she not leased those bitches and we did those breedings. And, one of them was not the most wonderful experience. The bitch whelped early. Cindy and I fought through tube feeding trying to save puppies and ended up with one puppy alive out of the litter. Breeding does not always go perfect, and it doesn't always go according to plan.
Right. You've got to be tough.
You've got to be tough.
A breeder.
But the truth is, if we hadn't done those out crosses because of Cindy's experience with those lines, we wouldn't have had some of the top dogs that we've talked about. So everybody has their niche. Everybody has their thing. And it doesn't always go smoothly between our discussions of who should be bred where and how it should work out. But the truth is it all comes together and it's made our line what it is.
Right.
Sometimes we break it down like we just did recently where my mom says, okay, this is my bitch. I'm going to breed her the way I want to. I have a bitch in the backyard that the stud choice was mine. And
she wants to do it.
And I saw a dog at the National I fell in love with and this is how we're going.
I don't have any bitches. I'd have a yard full of males if you'd let me, because the boys just are sweet. The
boys do love different than
they're
the girls.
Sweet
I will
until
say that.
season's around.
Now, I will tell you my feeling too is that back then when I was handling, you had those quality bitches.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I will say right now, and I know that we have reached out in a couple different areas of some bitches that we would either like to buy or to lease.
Yeah.
And and I respect these breeders that say, I want you to have a good one. I want to make sure it's the right one for you.
With us that
yeah, but at this
required.
point, we'll all be dead before that happens.
but your thing is, it's as I said, give me the honest. Right. And I understand when they say I don't want to send other.
I know that, but here's
they
what
know
I'm getting
what we'll do
at.
with it.
Right.
But what I'm getting at is that unfortunately that quality that was there how many years ago is not here today. So the pickings are a little more slim.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. And you don't have the line bred dogs. It's not like I can contact somebody who used to have a line bred line. Now I look at some of the pedigrees and some of the pedigrees are a bit of a mishmash. Which to me, when I'm looking at doing an outcross or bringing in something, says, I don't have a whole lot of confidence what's that going to produce.
Well, you can't because you've got so many different lines and stuff. You don't know the recessives in there.
Which honestly, we're not the only ones with this problem.
No. I think this is going on.
I think because you don't have a lot of big kennels. Most breeders today are operating on what? Maybe 6 to 12 dogs max. And it's very hard to stay within that and create a breeding program.
It is very evident in the numbers you have at the shows.
Yep.
The dogs. I'm sorry, it's not what it used to be. And it's not going to be. Right now, it doesn't look like it's getting any better. So, and it's kind of scary, actually. As a handler, it's kind of scary. Because I am to a point where I have the capacity to pick and choose what I want to show.
Right.
And even that is getting a little